Hi everyone, welcome to our next video, still on Python Shiny. So today we are going to be talking about your UI inputs. So these are the inputs which you can use in your user interface in your Shiny app when you are building on Python. The first thing we are going to be doing now, we are going to make sure we activate our virtual environment. So we need to first of all create a virtual environment before we now activate that particular virtual environment. So we are going to be creating a virtual environment by typing in Python virtual environment. So this is going to create a virtual environment for us. So you can see the virtual environment has been created for us. So how do we now activate this particular virtual environment? So we are going to be activating it by dot. Can you see it? Dot venv scripts activate. So you can see that we're already inside our virtual environment. So since the virtual environment is now going to be installing Shiny, so go to pip install Shiny. So you can see we are installing Shiny inside our virtual environment, and after the installation is done, then we are going to now be able to create a Shiny app or create a Shiny template, which is the next thing we are going to be doing now. Shiny create dot. So can you see that this has already created a Shiny template for us, app.py. So this is the app that we are having now. You can see the various input in our user interface that we have, and also the output, and this is the server side. So this is just a recap of what we treated in the last video. So let me run this app now. I'm going to be using Shiny run reload app.py. So by running that now, you can see I have a link here. So I'm going to, when I hover on the link, you can see it's telling me to follow link. So I'm going to be opening this particular link now, so you can see my Shiny app. So now you can see what this Shiny app does is that this is a slider. So anytime you play with this slider, the result is the number you select is going to be multiplied by 2. So you can see it now that it is actually changing. So it's going to multiply that number by 2, and any number and this is the output which you are going to be having. You can see UIH2. So this is define a second heading. So we can have UIH1 now. If I'm to change this to 1 now and save it, so you can see that it has changed. If I'm to put H4 now, for example, and save it, you can see that the text has become smaller. So this is it for this particular input. Then we have our UI.input slider, which controls which controls this particular slider. First of all, we are going to give it an ID, which is n. This ID is what we are going to know that this is what we are going to use to identify this particular input. Then after that, the next thing that we're going to be doing now is to, after defining the ID, then we are now going to give the title of this particular input slider. You can see it here, it is n. If I'm to change it here to numbers, you can see that it is going to change to numbers. Then here's our default value. So by saving it again, here's our range. Here's our range, which is 0, and you can see this is our minimum and this is our maximum, and this is our default value, which is 20. If I have to change this particular default value now to 2, I can decide to change it to 2, and let me just decide to change it to 80. I can decide to change this one to 200. I can decide to keep this as 50. So now when I'm to save this particular input, you can see that it has already changed to this place. So this is what happened in the user interface. You can see that the default value is now 80. We have our beginning to be 50, and we have our ending to be 200. Then also have our UI output text verbatim. So this is usually an output function used for code-like output. So that's why it's called output text verbatim. So this is just a brief explanation of the user interface. We will go into details coming soon. Then you can also see that we have our server. So this is our output, our render. These are decorators, which I explained in the last video, and this is our function, which is going to return our output. So this particular function now, you can see that we're able to access this input here from the input slider using the ID input.n. So any UI function that you want to access is going to be followed by the prefix input dot, then the UI ID. If this UI ID now in this place was actually number, so if I give it as number, then I'm going to be changing this to number. So when I save it, you can see that it's still giving me the same value. So I cannot leave it as n because I already changed the ID. So let me just change it back to the n. So the first input controls we're going to be talking about now, are going to be talking about the numeric controls. So the functions which are related to the numeric controls. So first of all now, we're going to be talking about input numeric. So let's say we have UI input. So for now, in this particular video, I'll just exclude anything related to the server. So I just want to show you how the input actually works. So I'm just going to say, so I'm going to be adding UI.input numeric. So what this UI.input numeric does is that it's just going to allow you to type in a value. So I'm going to be calling this ID, the ID of this particular input, x1, and I'm going to be calling it a number, or I can just say a number. Then these are the arguments it is taking, and the default value is going to be 20. So this is going to be the default value, then a comma. So I'm going to save this. You can now see that I'm having what, 20. So you can actually increase your value with these arrows, or you could just clear it and type in yours. You can see 50. So this is a type of input control which you have among your UI input functions. So we have UI input numeric. Then the next one which we have talked about is UI input slider. I've already talked about this UI input slider. This is your ID. This is what's the title of your input, and these are the range. Then this is your default value. Then the next we are going to be talking about is going to be UI.input slider, but this one is with a range. So I'm going to be calling this range. I'm going to be giving the ID as range, because you need to give the ID, else it's going to create an error. So it is a compulsory argument which you must give. Then the next one is going to be number range. This is our title, number range. Then we are now going to give our range. So the range is going to be value is equals to. So this is our default value. This is our default value or default range. So it's going to be value equals to, let's just say 20, 30. Then we're now going to give our minimum. So this is I did not actually give it in this place, but you can type it as minimum. This is the field argument. Minimum is equals to 0, and maximum is equals to 100. So this is it. I'm going to save it. Okay, you can see I've already forgotten a comma, so I'm supposed to give a comma in this place. So you can now see that it is now giving us our range. So you can see how you can select a range inside your numeric input. So this is using a slider. So this is the way you are going to type it. So this is for a range. This is for inputting a number. So this is it for this particular input controls: input numeric, input slider with a single value, and input slider with a range. So the next now we're going to be talking about text. So let's just clear these values. So now let's talk about text controls or text input. So the first to also have, just similar to the input numeric, is what's also input text. So input text first of all also takes your ID. I can just say this as name. Then I can now say what, texts, which is going to be the heading. I can just say name. Let me just give it as name. And we have what we call a placeholder. So placeholder is just like a text that allows your user to know that this is what I'm supposed to input in this place. Now I'm going to type in please input a text. So this is what I'm actually typing here, that the user should please input a text. So let me not forget my comma. You can see it. So I'm telling the user to please input a text using this particular placeholder. When I save it now, we are going to see what we are going to get. So you can see my placeholder here, please input a text. And you can now start typing in a text. Don't worry about how we use this in this in the server side. I'm going to be talking about this in another video. For this video, I'm just going to be concerned about the input controls which we have in our Shiny app when building with Python. Then the next now, we also have input text area. So input text area now, I'm going to be giving, it's also UI.input. So all input functions start with input, then texts, then area. So you can see it here, input text area. So input text area, now I'm going to be giving my ID. Let's just call this let's just call it a value. Let's just say story. I'm going to call it story. This is the ID. The ID is going to be a story. Then I'm going to be say story area. Or I can still call the title story. Then for the placeholder, I'm going to be typing please write a story. write a story. So just as easy as that. So the user should please write a story, and let me just put my comma here and save it. So when I save it now, you can see that I'm having a paragraph which you can actually adjust based on what you want to input. So this allows you to be able to input a long text if you have a long text. Then we have, okay, what if I want to now type in a password? We also have a function for that. We call it ui.input password. ui.input password allows you to be able to input a password. I can call the ID password. That can be the name of my ID. And I can now say the title should be password. So always differentiate between these two. This is the ID which you can access from the server side, and this is just your title. So the work of this just ends in the user interface. Then the next one will be my placeholder. So placeholder is going to be please type in password. So this is going to be my placeholder, and I'm just going to put in my comma here and save it. So when I do that, you can see I'm just able to type a password, and just like your regular password on websites, it's not going to be showing when you are typing it. So these are the text inputs which you have in Python Shiny or in PyShine. Then we also have selection inputs. So selection inputs allows you to be able to select from a group of options. So just like multi-choice or things like that. So the first selection input which we are going to be talking about is going to be UI.input select size. So this is UI input select size. So I'm just going to be calling this I can just call this A. I'm just going to give this ID of A. I can say input A, and let me just do it like this, input A. So I can just say input A should be gender. So let me just turn this to gender. So input A should be gender. Then we can just give a list. So this particular list now, which is my choices, I'm going to be giving it as let me just say, okay, you can have something like, since we are giving a list, I can just have something like male and let's use female. So this is our gender and comma. So I'm going to be saving this. So you can see the list now that I'm having male and female. So this is how an input look like. So we call this this is an input select size. And we also have another one where this is just for a single option. We have the ones where you can actually select multiple options. I'm going to be giving that now also. I can say UI.input select size. So I'm going to be giving let's just say I'm going to be giving age group. So under age group, I'm going to be giving my title to be age group. Then under age group now, my list is now going to become, I can just say less than 5, less than 5. We can also have 5 to 10, and I can also have let's just say 11 to 15. I can also have 15 above. So this is just a list of 4 age groups that I'm giving. Then how do I now make this for me to select multiple options in this place? I can just say multiple is equals to true. So multiple is equals to true, and I'm going to just save this. Okay, my comma. So you can see this particular age group now. So if I select less than 5, you can see I can also select another option. I can select 5 and 10. So this is how you can actually make your inputs. This is how you can actually create an input where the user can select multiple options. So we have UI input select and UI input selectize. So they are both similar. It's just that one uses the selectize JavaScript library. That is this one we just treated. So I'm going to be saying UI input select. I just want to show you that difference. So let me just copy this and paste it here. So I'm just going to change this to select. I'm just changing this to select. Okay, I think we have an issue. Okay, ID. The ID isn't supposed to be the same. So let me just say gender B and age group B. Okay, and I also having comma here. Okay, so I think it's okay now. So you can look at the two. This is for selectize and this is for select. So you can see that this one looks more appealing and better and makes use of little space than the input select for Shiny. So this is the input select for Shiny. You can see it. You can see it. So you just hold control if you want to select. You can see it. You hold control before you can select more than one. But you can see for the selectors, you just click on it, click on it, click on it, click on it. You can see it. So this is the difference. This particular one, this two is for selectors, while these other two are for the input select. We also have radio buttons. The radio buttons actually allow you to be able to give your user radio buttons and checkboxes, allow your user interface to also select like a list also. So unlike this particular list, radio buttons are actually listed where the user is able to check on them, and for checkboxes is for multiple options. So let me just remove this, or we could still use these particular ones we have. So I'm just going to be removing this particular option, UI input select. So I'm just going to be removing this, and I'll just change this UI input selectize. I'm going to be changing it to radio buttons, and I'm going to be changing this UI input. I'm going to be changing this particular one to checkbox. So checkbox group. So this is what I'm going to be changing it to. So we are going to be giving, first of all, just like other inputs, you give your ID first, the title of your input, then the list of your options. Just the same thing also we're doing for the checkbox, the list of our options. But I'm going to be removing this particular argument because it's a checkbox, and we know in a checkbox you can select more than one option. So I'm going to be saving it. Okay, I'm always forgetting my comma. So you can see our radio buttons here, male, female. You can see age group, checkbox. I'm able to select more than one options. So this is also an checkbox, and radio buttons are also input controls for options which your user can be able to select from. So the next input controls that we have are toggle inputs. So we have two types of toggle inputs. So I'm going to be removing this. We have a UI input checkbox, and I'm going to be giving it ID of A, and I'm going to be calling this checkbox. So these are actually what toggle inputs. So we are going to be seeing it now. And UI.input switch, I'm going to give it ID of B, and the title as what switch. So I'm going to save this, and you can now see it. So this is our checkbox. Can you see it? So can you see why that other one that we had earlier on was named checkbox UI.input checkbox group? So this is actually the main checkbox. You can see it. So one can use this to change. Maybe you want to change the theme of your Shiny app. You can actually use this kind of control. And we have the switch. So you can see the switch, how the switch actually works. You can see this way the switch actually works. So these are the two toggle input controls which we have. And the next one is also the date input controls. So under the date input controls, we have UI.input date, and we are going to be giving this ID of A, and we are going to be giving the title of date input. So you can see it's giving the title of date input. And if I'm to save this now, you can see that it allows me to be able to input a date. So you can see it, I'm able to input a date. You can see it. So you can just select a date, just like what you do on a normal website. So this allows you to set date controls. So that is for UI input date. We also have UI input date range. So UI input date range. So UI input date range, I'm going to be giving the ID of A, usual and also what date range inputs. So when I save this now, you can see that it's different from that other one. You can see it. So the other one, you are able to select a single date. So and this current one now, you are able to select a range. So this is also the date controls or the date input controls, which you have. You can select a single date and also a date range. And the next one that we also have is action buttons. So this is the final input controls. We have action buttons. Imagine someone is using your Shiny app, and after selecting a lot of values, a lot of input controls, the person now wants to perform an action like submit, a button like submit, which now controls all other operations. So this is what we are going to be talking about now. So we have UI dot input action button. I can just call this the ID A. I can just give the title action button. And after giving the title action button, I'm going to save this, and you can see it. We have a nice looking action button. So which one can actually press. In our next video, I'm going to be talking about output controls. So these are our input controls which you have in Python Shiny. You can see how we can be able, you allow your user to give in a list, your user can give in a list, your user can give in calendar lists, ranges, and things like that. So in the next video, we are going to talk about the output and how can you be able to control these outputs and inputs from your server side in Python Shiny. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.